Welcome to The Dogs Were Good Again. If you're watching this, you may notice that I am in my room where I typically film top 5 dogs of the week and not in our usual studio. That is to accommodate a very special human guest that we have this week. Today I am joined by an absolute all-star in the animal welfare world. She has fostered 26?
Give or take, yeah.
Give or take 26 foster dogs, most in the New York City area with Muddy Paws. She has documented this process to her millions of followers online. She is the absolute queen of this world, and we are very lucky to have her. Her storytelling has captivated millions recently with her most recent foster dog, Tiki. Isabel Klee, thank you so much for being here.
I am absolutely thrilled to be here. And we were just saying it's so crazy that we haven't formally met before.
I know. This is an interesting format for it, but very nice to meet you. And hopefully our mutual fan bases are pleased with this.
Yes, I hope so. Hopefully nobody's upset about it. That would be crazy.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, that looks like a good dog. That's a good dog. Yeah, that looks like a good dog. A very good dog.
This episode is sponsored by The Farmer's Dog. The Farmer's Dog makes fresh food pre-portioned for your dog's specific needs and delivered right to your door. All their recipes are complete and balanced and human grade, which means they're made to the industry's highest safety and quality standards. June is National Foster a Pet Month, and The Farmer's Dog is celebrating in a variety of ways, including giving your dog 70% off their first order through the link in our description until the end of the month. They frequently bolster the resources of nonprofit organizations with food donations. A huge piece of fostering is establishing a routine in a new environment, and great food on a consistent schedule helps tremendously with that. We've appreciated a partnership with The Farmer's Dog for a few years now and have become passionate advocates simply by watching dogs thrive on it. Again, you can start your dog's fresh food journey for 70% off through the link in our description. So Isabel, on this podcast, we always have an adoptable special guest, and even with the change of scenery, today is no exception. So I'd love to introduce you to Clasp. Come here.
Oh my goodness.
Let's go. She's very wiggly. She's 4 months old.
Oh, that is a big 4 months old.
Yeah, she's going to be quite large, is my guess. But 4 months old, adoptable from Wags and Walks here in LA. They've supplied many of our special guests. But she is so sweet. Like, she is already very chill. I met her 25 minutes ago. She's settled very well in this one room that we've given her access to. Wags and Walks, I gotta tell them about you. Wags and Walks says, our sweet girl Clasp, she's got a pretty special story. We rescued her mom, Button, with her 7 babies. So you were one of 7 from a high kill shelter when they were just a few days old. Button was having some complications nursing all of them. So several of them had to be bottle fed, including this one. Shortly after, her and 2 of her litter mates, unfortunately had distemper.
Yeah.
Her 2 of them sadly did not make it, but she did. So they're calling her the miracle of her litter. You cannot lick my laptop. Her fosters call her a miracle. She has 2 siblings with that current foster that she gets along beautifully with. Do I need to put my camera down slightly?
Yeah, we got to see her face. Come on.
There you go. That's a little better. And yeah, so we've also had a streak of our audience covering adoption fees. And since we're in my apartment, I'm going to cover her adoption fee.
Wow.
So that makes 17. This is episode 17 straight episodes where our special guest has their fee covered. So that's another one less barrier for Clasp here. Again, available from Wags and Walks here in LA, and she is just darling. And hopefully she hangs out with us. I've kind of forced her to because I've shut the door to the rest of my apartment. But yeah,
the fact that you just met her 25 minutes ago and she's already like snuggling with you in your lap is absolutely amazing.
I have not even bribed her. Like, we haven't even whipped out the treats yet.
She just loves you instantly. That's like the best kind of dog.
Yeah. Do you hear that? You're the best kind of dog.
And I have to say, they did a really good job bottle feeding her because she is a big girl.
Yes.
I also love a themed name. The fact that her mom was Button and she's Clasp. Like, that is the cutest thing ever.
It really is, and I forget. Let's see what they called. They called the litter something because they got to brand the whole litter.
It has to be like zipper, maybe.
Yeah. In the please guess what you think the overall theme of the litter was, but clasp and button. I feel like maybe it's sewing related.
Yeah, sewing related or just like articles of clothing maybe. But I feel like it's more specific than articles of clothing. It's like the instruments in which you're like closing an article of clothing.
Yes. I think that's a very good guess.
Which is very specific and niche.
I
might have to suggest that to Muddy Paws because I love it.
Well, they got to be running out.
You know what? They actually don't. And I mean, I'm sure I'm not in the naming department, so maybe they are, but I feel like they keep coming up with these amazing names. And the ACC, the New York City's open intake shelter that I work with a lot, their names are so incredible. Like if you're ever bored, just like scroll through their website one day and I'm like, whoever is in charge of this is doing such a great job.
Yes. Another organization that always has phenomenal names is the Nebraska Humane Society.
Yes.
They are, it's next level. And they haven't limited it to like a themed litter. They'll just call their dog six different names just to be unique. And I think like the screenshots from Pet Finder are truly remarkable. And I feel like they often lead back to Nebraska Humane Society.
Yeah. And Austin Pets Alive, they're also really good at it, specifically with their cats. And I actually visited Austin Pets Alive, and this is probably obvious, but it's a marketing tactic because somebody will see a cat with a crazy name and they'll be like, okay, well, I got to meet, Sir Chester II, whatever the name is. I mean, that's a pretty tame one, but
yeah.
So that has to be somebody's full-time job because I can't imagine otherwise.
It's gotta be. But within the rescue, it's probably the 25th thing that one volunteer
Yeah,
is doing.
That's true.
All right, Isabel. Well, I noticed that you also might have a dog on your lap. So do you want to introduce us to your current foster?
I would love to introduce you. So
I'll pretend like I don't know who this is.
This is my current foster, Cheesecake, speaking of amazing names. And he is from the Animal Care Centers of New York City, and I'm fostering him through Muddy Paws Rescue. He is about a year old, and they found him tied to a gate in a public park, completely emaciated, and classified it as a neglect cruelty case. Unfortunately, they don't know who did it or where he came from, just the state that he was in. He was level 1 on the body condition scale, which is the worst that a dog can be before they die, to be perfectly blunt. And he's doing so well. He is night and day from my previous foster, Tiki, where Tiki was physically okay, but mentally completely checked out. And this dog is the complete opposite, where he is just so loving and sweet, but he physically is struggling. But every day he's doing a little bit better. And he'll be joining us for this interview.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing him with not only us, but the entire world.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's doing better.
Yeah, he's a fighter.
For the maybe one person who's listening that isn't familiar with Tiki, could you share his story with us?
Of course. So Tiki was my foster dog before Cheesecake, and I am known to be a little bit of a sucker when it comes to dogs. I usually have a foster dog, and as soon as one gets adopted, I say, I'm going to wait a couple of weeks and, until I get my next foster dog. And then I get a text from Muddy Paws Rescue saying, hey, here's this dog. What do you think? And inevitably I go to the shelter and pick it up. So Tiki was no different. My foster dog had just gotten adopted before him. And my friend Hillary, who runs their foster program at Muddy Paws, texted me and said that the ASPCA just got a group of dogs in. They were in really awful condition. And there was a list of all of their names. And one had their eye removed. One had all of their teeth removed. There's a little description for each dog. And then there was Tiki. And it said that he was by far the most shut down of the group. And so immediately I was like, that's the one I want, because I love dogs. I call them the undesirables. I love dogs that are hard to get adopted, ones that are in, poor medical condition or behavioral. So I especially love a shutdown dog. I love a challenge. So I agreed to take him. And then the next day, there was a conversation between some behaviorists who, I'm going to put him down because he's, okay, hold on. You okay? There was a conversation between some behaviorists who didn't think that Tiki was capable of getting better and that he wasn't capable of being rehabilitated. And they didn't know if I should take him because I have a large audience, and there was a really big possibility that I would take him and share his story, and then the outcome would be not so great. And unfortunately, that's just the reality of rescue. Some dogs can't be rehabbed, and they can't get better, and they have to perform behavioral euthanasia. And I was willing to tell that story. I said, I think it's important to tell that story. I think even if that is the outcome, at least we tried. So the next day, I went and picked him up, and he was in much worse condition physically than I was anticipating. In the original photos I saw of him, he didn't have his iconic white stripe across his face, which I believe they shaved because he had double cherry eye surgery, but there could have been other.
Yeah, I will say that the story flowing from a criminal case and then him looking like an absolute bandit.
A bandit.
Was very funny, unintentionally, but hilarious.
I know. Well, it's interesting because so Tiki's backstory can't be shared because it's an ongoing community case. The ASPCA deals with a lot of criminal cases and legal cases and mental health cases, and this situation is currently still ongoing. And hopefully I'll be able to share more at some point, but I can't share anything. And I think that also led a lot of people to speculate about what happened. I saw a lot of people being like, he had duct tape across his eyes. And I mean, maybe he did, but I'm like, I don't know that. I don't know how you know that because I don't know that. So we don't know exactly what happened to him, but it was very clear that it wasn't good. I had never met a dog who was as mentally shut down and depressed. I had met dogs that were scared. I had met dogs that were angry. I had met dogs, nervous, whatever it may be. He was just like ready to die. And for the first couple of days, I really believed, or it seemed that he wouldn't get better. And I kind of had to prepare for that. And then about 4 days in, he just started like doing things. Like it started with one paw out of the crate, and then he'd fully come out of the crate, and then he would eat his food, and then he went to the bathroom. And day by day, it was like these little moments and these little victories and these little acts of braveness. And it was just incredible to watch. And I was so in awe of him. And then I shared it, and the world was in awe of him. And it just kind of kept snowballing, all of these people cheering him on. And it was just so incredible until eventually he was crawling into my lap and cuddling me and going on walks. And
he had those big milestones. Yeah.
Big. Yeah. And it was just incredible to watch. So that is the story of Mr. Tiki. And he eventually got adopted by an amazing family. So it was just the best possible outcome that I could have hoped for.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you mentioned it, that it could have gone a number of ways. And I think regardless, it would have been an incredibly important story to tell. So I really appreciate, you taking that on, knowing that his ending was a question mark, and that was okay. That it would have been a very honest reflection of being a foster parent regardless.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are scared to take on those cases just in case it ends up being sad and heartbreaking. But I believe that every dog deserves the chance to get better. And, not every dog can, but it just didn't seem fair to give up hope on him while he was still in a shelter environment. And it's stressful and it's loud and he's with all of his other siblings. And, so I hope for the best, and the best happened. But, in the future, I'm sure I will be presented with a situation in which a dog, that is the outcome, and that is okay too.
Absolutely. I apologize if you hear snoring. She's now in my lap, but snoring directly into the mic.
I am obsessed with that.
It's very funny. Let's see if I can.
Oh,
There she is.
hi. Are you snoring with your eyes open?
Not anymore. She's like, well, he kind of moved, so now I'm
Her
awake.
eyes are so pretty.
They really are. Why do you think Tiki resonated with so many people? Was it the look? Was it the snowballing that you mentioned? What was it?
It's a great question because I've been sharing my foster stories for a very, very long time, and there have been some that have gone more viral. But Tiki is unparalleled. The amount of attention he got. I think it was a combination of things. I think number one, it's a very hard time to be a human right now, and there's a lot going on in the world, and there's a lot of heartache and negativity on the internet and politics, whatever it is. There's just a lot of sadness and isolation. And I think Tiki was something to root for, and it was something to unite everybody. I saw so many videos of people reacting to Tiki and being like, Tiki's the only thing like uniting the world right now. And then I also think that so many people watched his story and saw themselves in him. It was like the first time that I had fostered a dog that people related to the dog, which sounds so silly, but it was like they saw this dog who had been completely broken. And I think everybody has felt that way at some point, maybe not as severely, but everybody has some sort of trauma. Everybody has felt broken, and still he got better. And I think the craziest part for everyone and the really healing part for everyone was to see that he wasn't being brave in that he was climbing Mount Everest or performing for, 5,000 people on a stage or doing something hugely monumental that we might categorize as brave. He was just leaving his bed every day, and he was getting up and he was eating his food, and he was trying something new, and he was learning how to go outside. And it was all these little things that we were all so excited about. And I think people kind of reflected on themselves and allowed themselves to go slow with themselves and to heal at their own pace and to celebrate the little wins. And it was like all of these really simple things that we all got so excited about. And it was just so cool for me because, of course, when it's my foster dog, I get so excited about everything. And the first time that they play with a toy and the first time that they play with my dog, Simon. But to see all of these people who don't even know this dog getting so excited about it was just such a cool experience. And I really think that it just united people and made them feel better about themselves in some very interesting way that I hadn't experienced before.
Those wins you mentioned are the ones they're relatable to the average person.
Yeah.
They really are. Like getting out of bed in the morning can be very difficult, and to have a whole community rallying around a dog that is doing so has got to make you feel, very, very attached to the story.
Totally. I mean, I suffered from very intense depression my freshman year of college. And I remember those moments of like being like, I can't get out of bed. I can't feed myself. I can't brush my teeth. Like all of these really simple things. And when I did them, they felt hugely monumental to me. But I think at the time I was like, oh, who cares if I did that? Like nobody else probably cares about that. And I think it was this realization that we do care and it is important. And sometimes those are the acts of bravery and, just going out into the world and experiencing it and, doing one new thing every single day. I think that is the brave thing. And it doesn't have to be something really big or really cool or something that you post about on Instagram. It can just be something for yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's very well said.
Thanks.
I think you had your entire community and obviously, well beyond that, waiting for the updates every morning. Like you had us in a routine of checking in. And I think that's a very interesting parallel to the routine that you were trying to provide Tiki, successfully provided Tiki, and is such an important aspect of fostering is like, this is a new environment. It is, within Tiki's case, a stark contrast to probably where he came from. So I was wondering if you could share a little bit about how that routine is so important, and maybe how his mealtime really assisted in that.
Yeah. Routine is hugely important to any dog, but especially a dog like Tiki, who has really, it seems, not experienced a lot of things in his life. It seemed like he had never gone outside. It seemed like he hadn't had a lot of human interaction. It seemed like he had never played with a toy before. So at first, our routine was just me existing near him. And I think that was the most important thing, was for him to learn that I wouldn't, invade his privacy. I wouldn't push his boundaries. And then the routine just became doing one new thing a day. And I think it's really important to not go too fast and not push too far. And I see a lot of people who get their foster dogs and they do everything at once. They're like, let's go on a walk and go to a coffee shop and introduce you to 17 dogs. And it's just like, can you imagine if you were just taken in essentially the middle of the night and placed in a new country, and, you didn't speak the language and everything was new and all the people around you were new. That would be really scary. So it was very important for us to go slow, to do one thing at a time. And food was a huge component in us gaining his trust. High value treats were, he was obsessed with cheese, as we all know. That was really big. That was huge. And we feed him and all of our foster dogs the farmer's dog, which is just, in my opinion, the best food. It comes the calories are pre-packaged. You know exactly how much to feed your dog. And all of my foster dogs have loved it. And just like providing him with good nutrition and good meals. And we did a lot of hand feeding, which was very important in building that trust. I think that made all of the difference. I mean, by the time he left, his mask had completely grown in, his fur was shiny, this is a dog podcast, so I can say this, but his poops were perfect. Mm-hmm. He was healing mentally and physically. And I think food has everything to do with that.
Yeah, that's what, to just feel like we were all a part of it was really special. And that was kind of the gift that you gave everyone with Tiki. And I think, we all kind of gauged time in terms of that fur growing back.
Yeah. And I actually, as far as like the content side of it, that was actually a new tactic in some ways. Probably
a challenge too. I'm just thinking, because he's kind of locked, that fur growing back is kind of locks him in time.
Yeah. It was a new tactic in some ways, because I am obsessed with these dogs. And I'm like, as soon as I get a foster dog, I'm recording them 24/7. And in the past, I would just, as soon as I took a video, I'd like edit it and then throw it up. And sometimes I'd be posting 3 times a day. And for Tiki, I was very intentional about only doing 1 video a day, because that was nothing else was happening. It's like, everyone's like, we want more Tiki. And I'm like, nothing. Tiki's just like sleeping in his crate, because that's how slow things had to go. And his progress was so slow. And so it was almost like, it was this unintentional, I was like kind of like starving people of like these updates, and they wanted them so quickly, because in social media, we want that instant gratification of like, oh, I get this dog and then the dog is healed. And like, it only takes a few days, and that's not the reality of it. So it was like 1 video a day and it was just a compilation of everything that had happened that day. And that was kind of like the pace at which we were going in real time. I couldn't make it go any faster, nor would I want to make it go any faster, because then that would have, pushed back his progress. So it was kind of this weird mirroring, and it worked unintentionally. I wasn't my goal of it was not to gain a lot of followers or gain, millions of views or whatever, but that's what ended up happening, because people were so like, when's the next one coming? When's the next one coming? And that was interesting for me to see too, of like, I'm kind of, the updates are coming as it's unfolding.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean,
Cheesecake?
and it's because and I know this is you and I can talk about content nonstop. I
Yeah.
know this is more
We don't have
dog
to get into the
focused,
content side
but
of it.
I'm sure it was like that is not only were you able to like flex your skill set in that way, but it seemed like you were storytelling his journey so well that it seemed like every update, even if it was like, you know, each one was so purposeful, even if it was daily and you kind of felt like, as you did the intros, it was like, it's day,
Yeah.
30 it felt like every time you appeared on our screens, it was a very meaningful update, even if it may not have felt meaningful to you in that moment or to Tiki, right? It still felt that the update was very worthwhile, even if nothing huge had occurred in the last 24 hours. And I think maybe that also speaks to what people were getting out of the series that may not have been as in your face as, him coming out of his crate or cuddling or getting pet for the first time.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And I actually feel the same way about We Rate Dogs, where it's like, don't get me wrong, I'm addicted to social media and like love to scroll on TikTok and all that. But I see all these videos that are like, the way to grow on TikTok is to post 20 times a day. And I'm sure there is something to that. But I try, especially as I am progressing throughout my journey of being a content creator, I am trying to be very intentional about the content that I'm putting out. And I'm trying to only do one video a day, and I'm trying to make it like actually mean something and actually matter and not just kind of posting fluff, which fluff is great. And I love to consume it. But I just kind of felt like, in the grand scheme of the content that I was creating and the story that I was trying to tell, it just didn't have a place on my page. So the fact that you could see that means a lot. And that's my goal, is to be super intentional about what I'm putting out into the world and how it impacts people or what people can learn from it.
Absolutely. When we, with our content, when we're trying to gauge overall success or just our relevance for the month, we really look at average likes per post and views per post. Like we're trying to have the posts that maybe we're not as excited about still like resonate with a lot of people. And I think that keeps us in that, quality over quantity mindset, even though people are like, just show us all the dogs. Like, and I have a database of like 100,000 dogs that I could show you, but we just want to like very intentionally curate that experience. Like that is an indicator of how much, we think about it and care about our community.
Right.
So,
and I think that's why you have such a dedicated and engaged audience, is because you're putting so much thought into, like, there are so many dog videos on the internet and all of them are amazing, but it's like you're doing the work of like sifting out the best of the best and the most entertaining or the most touching or themes of dogs and all of that. So I just think it's great. And I am glad that we're aligned in that way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And just because you started to mention it, is content creation your full-time job now?
So it's funny. I always said, I always said it would never be my full-time job. And then I got a book deal. So in my head, I'm like, well, I'm a writer and a content, like I'm like kind of gaslighting myself into thinking that it's different, but it's really not. Yes, I am a full-time content creator and working on my book. But I'm so lucky. I literally could not have dreamed this life for myself. I say it to my fiance all the time. I'm like, I cannot believe that this is my life. I can't believe I get to take care of these dogs as a career. Can't believe I get to, educate people. It's surreal. So I feel immensely grateful for it.
Yeah, I was curious because I know a little bit more about how much goes into even one video a day. Like I know that it's, there's quite a workload there. So I was curious about that. Well, congratulations. And I would say that there is a difference. You're utilizing a whole bunch of the same skill sets to do both, but writing a book is like I think there might be something about the legacy of that medium, or like how traditional, like it is the opposite of instant gratification.
Yes.
There's going to be very exciting, launch day, and when you see what sales look like, and like bestseller lists and all, like there is that level of like, a carrot of what we're used to. But I will say that it's just like I'm making, like when we do our calendars, we're making our 2027 calendar right now.
Oh my God.
And so I'm shipping captions that I'm not going to see, or the audience isn't going to see for 2 years. And it's just, it's a different mindset. And it's, in some ways it's less pressure, because I'm not like putting it out there and immediately knowing if it resonated or not. But in other ways it's like, oh, that's really good, and I just want to share it with everyone now, because that's what I'm used to.
I know. That is exactly what my experience was. I started the book process in April of last year. And I remember my literary agent saying to me, well, your book will probably come out summer of 2026. And I was like, what? I was like,
yeah,
that's so far away. It was so crazy to me, because again, it's like, I am like, usually my content is a few days behind. Like, I recorded it Monday and then it'll go up Thursday. But that's very like fast, and that's very instant. And then as soon as it goes up, you immediately get all this flood of comments that you're sorting through. And this is like a completely different experience, like you said, where it's something that you're working on and working on and working on. I'm so proud of it. And every day I'm like, oh, I just can't wait for people to read it. But I still have another year. And like, it's just this weird, it's a totally different mindset. But I love it. I love the process. I loved writing it. I'm in the process of editing it now. I'm like starting to, dream up what the cover might look like. It's just so much fun. And it's flexing a completely different muscle than social media, in a lot of ways. And, it's been the coolest process ever.
Well, we can't wait for it. And, I hope you can try to be patient.
Yes. There's nothing else I can do.
One skill set that you are utilizing in both, for sure, is storytelling. How did you develop the skill set that you have? And is it just doing it, or do you have like, were you educated in some way to tell these stories of these foster dogs?
So I grew up in a family of writers. My mom is an English teacher, or was. She's retired now. She was a 7th grade English teacher. My dad was a journalist. And my brother is also a journalist for Rolling Stone. So I did go to college for English literature and creative writing. And writing has always been my number one, like, greatest love. It's like dogs and then writing. They're tied up there. And never in a million years. I mean, I've loved dogs since I was 5 years old, and I got my first childhood dog. And then in high school, I started studying creative writing. And I never in a million years was like, I'm going to combine these two one day. I couldn't have predicted that. But I always knew that I wanted to write. And writing a book was really like a pipe dream for a long time. For 7 years out of college, I had a normal job, 9 to 5. I actually just became a full-time content creator in October. So it's all very new. And then I started freelancing about 2.5 years ago, and kind of started investing more time into my social media and sharing my writing, and kind of writing about my dog and writing about my fosters. And I just got an email one day from my now literary agent, and the end sentence said, "Would you ever consider writing a book?" And I was like, yeah, like, are you kidding me? This is the coolest thing ever. So it was always something I wanted, but never something that I thought could happen. I don't know why. I kind of put it out of my head. So the fact that it's come to fruition like this is just like the coolest thing.
Well, congratulations. And it actually makes me feel better that you didn't just happen upon this storytelling gift, and that you, because I'd be very jealous of that. I know that there's problems in the animal welfare world are general, and then they're also specific to, the cities. Certain cities have certain problems. But if a politician came to you and said, I have all these resources, how do we make New York City the best place in the world for animal welfare? What would be a few things you'd say to them?
I love this question. And I'm going to say something that I think that I know that you agree with me on, is that you can't have animal welfare without human welfare. And I believe that so deeply in my bones. And there are so many rescue people who say things like, oh, I hate people, that's why I work with dogs, or, things like that. And I do understand, in the rescue world, you see the worst of the worst. But you also just see a lot of people who have no other options, especially in a city like New York City. Housing prices are insane. Rent prices are skyrocketing. No landlords accept pets. There's no resources for, people who are making minimum wage. Vet costs are out of control. There's no education on how to care for your pets. Nobody teaches people about spay and neuter. Nobody teaches people about vaccines. No one teaches anyone about why it's bad to buy a puppy from a puppy mill. I think it's really easy to blame people for not knowing any better, but that's not helpful. I think having affordable housing, I think affordable vet care, free spay and neuter clinics, I think you need it all. I think you need to help people before you can help animals. And then, of course, there's really cracking down on backyard breeders, really cracking down on puppy mills. But, offering free spay and neuter would really help as well. But I think really starting at the root of the issue would help everything. I think people are inherently good, and I think it's important to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I've had so many fosters who were owner surrenders, and so many people comment horrible things about how could somebody do this, or I would never abandon my dog. It's like, well, you should feel glad that you've never had to. And of course, there are people who, have a baby and then give their dog up, and to us, it doesn't make sense. But, it doesn't do us any favors to try and figure out a situation just to point a finger. It's like, okay, well, it happened. So now what? Like, what do we do now? And I think that's really how we start helping people.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's meeting people where they're at.
Yep.
I think that especially with our foundation, it's tough to navigate around because we're dealing with dogs that are in the shelter and they have some sort of medical need. And right. the vast majority of that time, the medical need occurred while they were with a family that then could not afford that care. And the best thing for that pet was to surrender them so they could get the care that they need. And that's why, unless we absolutely have the cold hard facts of the previous situation, or we can very responsibly say this was an abuse, a neglect, a criminal situation, we're not going to cater to the comments that are shaming the previous owner. Right. I think a story that comes to mind, and this is bad, I'm not going to be able to remember the dog name. I know a lot of the dog stories by name, but I don't remember this one. Was a dog who was left, and this is probably also not an uncommon story, but the dog was left with a backpack of their favorite toy, all their treats. Oh, I'm going to cry just thinking about it.
No,
and a note from the previous owner just saying all the ways that they could take care of the dog. Like, this is so-and-so, this is what they love. This is how you love this dog. And I like to picture that same person as the person who is surrendering the dog in whatever situation, and it's what's best for them. Because that can be, like, even just talking about it is very emotional. So imagine the person that's giving up the dog. It's the care to do the story that I just shared is not always present, but the emotions that come with leaving a dog that you may have had your whole life are certainly there. So that's why, we're very careful when we have a story where you could place blame, is to only kind of place that blame when it is an incredibly clear case.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, the fact that nothing gets accomplished if you shame people for surrendering a dog. The only thing that comes out of it are people who are then scared to surrender their dog and, like my foster dog Cheesecake, tie them to a pole, left to die. Who knows what the situation was, but that was a much worse situation for Cheesecake than had he been surrendered to the shelter. And thankfully he made his way to the shelter anyway. The police brought him in, but yeah, it's like we should be creating a safe space for people to do the right thing, and the judgment doesn't lead to anything. Like it just leads to shame. I had a similar situation to the one that you just described. My foster dog Caesar, I fostered him over Christmas, and we had the best Christmas together. But his owner was a much older man, and he was walking Caesar one day, and he slipped and fell and broke a hip or broke a leg. You know, he was too injured to then care for the dog. Caesar got passed around to a few family members. Of course, the family members are like, we can't, it's not their responsibility. They have young children. He's a big dog. So he ended up at the shelter. And that's just like a situation where I'm like, there's no other outcome. Like there's nothing else that they could have done. This man clearly loved this dog. This dog was so sweet and so loved. And it just breaks my heart that, I don't know, people are shamed for trying to do the right thing. And it's not up to us to be the moral police of being like, that's a good enough reason or that's not a good enough reason. It just is. So, yeah, I don't think it's productive. And I understand feeling the need to blame somebody, but sometimes it's a blameless situation.
I got a few people you can blame, but other than that, yeah, I think that it's a ridiculous stat that like half of this country is a $500 unexpected expense away from poverty levels.
Right.
It is like we have built a system and people are doing their best within that system. So to call out and to name the problem responsibly, and it's what you just shared. To name and try to progress through is to meet people where they're at and create a system where human beings can thrive, and then you can back into some of the problems that we're facing in the animal welfare world, because you can't, even if you were to fix the certain dog related issues first, you'd still be leaning back on families that can't take care of themselves. And
it's what I said before too, of people saying, well, I would never do that. And I don't think people reflect on that and realize that that's a very, very privileged place to be, to say, like, the fact that you would never do that means that you can afford a $10,000 vet bill, or you have
other options,
or you do have a community who could take care of your dog should you get cancer and be in the hospital for 6 months at a time. Like, that's such a place of privilege. And it's amazing that these people are able to provide that care for their dog. But to shame, it's the same people who are like, why aren't you getting a dog? Why aren't you adopting? But, if you do adopt, you have to do X, Y, and Z. So yeah, I think there's a lot of black and white mentality in rescue.
Oh, it's an incredibly nuanced. Hi, are you awake now?
She's like, what are we talking about?
It's you don't need to worry about it. It's a very nuanced. Speaking of like not black and white, yeah, all these situations are not only individual situations, but they are incredibly nuanced. And that's actually, I like the video format. Like, I had to force myself to be in front of the camera for the first time in late 2021, because before that it was all UGC stuff. And I'm for so many reasons that has strengthened our community. But it's one of them is that I can articulate nuance in a way that I couldn't before with my words, and maybe a more skilled writer would be able to, but for me to be able to talk to an audience almost one-on-one and have inflection in my voice in some ways, and they're still very short videos, but be able to kind of navigate around more difficult situations, I'm very thankful for. I think out of all the platforms out there, the platforms that prioritize video allow for more nuance than, I guess I'm only comparing to what Twitter used to be and really still is. So yeah, grateful for that. And there's just all these stories have nuance. But I hope a politician asks you that genuinely.
I wish they would. Actually, I did speak at a City Hall, New York City Hall. I testified for the ACC getting more funding. So I did kind of say that.
Yeah. Let's take 0.0001% of our military budget and throw it at the dogs and we'll be fine.
Or just like humans in general, like helping humans, maybe.
Yeah.
Is that too crazy?
It is, apparently, Isabel. It's way too crazy. You kind of mentioned it, but one of the beliefs that we hold very close, and it's helped us lead, with empathy and grace more often than not, is the belief that most people are doing their best. And I know we talked about that with your previous answer there. But do you have a belief that is maybe similar that you kind of try to lead your content with, and then ultimately those beliefs become the themes of your community? And do you have any of those that you try to center your content around?
Yeah, I mean, I think exactly that. Giving people the benefit of the doubt, I think, is so important. I think especially on the internet, it's so easy to point fingers and it's so easy to get angry. Listen, I get horrible comments. You'd think like I'm doing things that are pretty like wholesome and like, but I still get mean comments. And sometimes my knee-jerk reaction is to get angry because, I'm sure these people who are leaving mean comments on my videos are people who don't do anything in animal rescue or animal welfare. But this actually happened just about 2 weeks ago with Tiki, and somebody made a video saying that just like a very mean video with misinformation, saying that I rehomed Tiki, and it was just like, it made me upset.
Well, even that word is not.
That's exactly. So that word like really tripped me up and triggered me. I immediately took my phone. I recorded this like spicy video where I'm like, just like popping off on this person. I save it. I send it to my friends. I send it to my manager. And my manager's like, yes, but like, I don't think this is like you. And it is me. Like, I do have like this, like a fire in me that I just like, you don't get it. Like, you don't understand. Yeah. I'm like actually here doing this work, and like it's easy for you to like sit at home and criticize whatever. Of course, there is a part of me that feels that way. But I think that you're the same way in that like I try to lead people or present people with kindness and empathy. And I think there's a way to clap back at people, but it is like very necessary for me to provide facts as well, and to communicate it calmly and kindly, even if I'm like being a little bit like, actually, here's the truth of it. There has to be reasoning behind it. There has to be facts. I love data. I love coming at people with like, actually, here are the facts. Yeah. You can't dispute it. It's like, people were saying, I can't believe that was the first time Tiki's parents met him. Like, shouldn't they have done multiple home visits? And I got to say, actually, there's a study on that, and it is actually more stressful for a dog to continuously meet people and then be shipped off with them rather than just like a quick transition. So there's data behind that, and people think that we're just making these decisions on a whim, but Tiki's parents were very thoughtfully chosen. There was so much thought put behind that decision, and they ended up being incredible. Anyone can look at his new Instagram and see that they're just like the best ever. But I think just education is like number one. Kindness, being patient, trying to see where other people are coming from too, because a lot of people just don't understand what fostering is. A lot of people don't know these things. And I can't tell you how many people in the past week since I've had Cheesecake have commented on my video saying, now I get it. I followed you because of Tiki, and I wanted you to adopt Tiki so badly. And now I see this emaciated dog in your home, and I see Tiki in his home, and I see why you did it. And so even just that is like, that's worth it to me. Of like, I will go through hundreds of thousands of mean comments accusing me of being a horrible person for finding Tiki a home, for them to then realize, keep following along and seeing how it compounds. Because he was adopted, Cheesecake got to live. And that's how it works. And I'm so grateful for the people who say, like, I'm so sorry. I've gotten so many messages. I'm so sorry. I messaged you saying that you had to adopt Tiki, but I take it back. I get it. And that's been
wonderful.
Yeah, it's been great.
I didn't, that for some reason when you said that, it really hit me. Like that's like just that realization, like that's such you showcased it so bluntly that for that, because people, how often do people change their minds, right? So for you to be able to, in one video showcasing your new foster, be able to do that is
and I think that if I had made an angry video being like, you guys what are you even doing? You're not doing anything. I think that would have isolated those people. And what's even the point of that? Like, I'm just isolating these people who don't know better. And obviously I've created this community where people are willing to learn, and I'm so grateful for that. So yeah, my goal is to always be open and try and, deliver information as kindly as I can.
I think you're doing a great job.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Don't wake the baby.
You're hilarious. Taking care of pets in general is not really all sunshine and rainbows. And I think something that you did along your journey with Tiki was really highlight some of those struggles and potential setbacks. But for someone who has maybe only heard about pet ownership through the incredibly wholesome, unconditional love lens, what would you tell them to maybe have more realistic expectations the first time they go into maybe fostering, maybe adopting?
I think because of social media, a lot of people see all these dogs that are like Instagram dogs, and they seem so perfect and they seem so perfectly behaved, and they're quirky and they're funny and they're going on vacation. And I mean, those dogs obviously exist. Like, there's so many dogs that are like that, but there are so many dogs who are also not like that. And I think going in with realistic expectations is so important. With any dog, whether you're adopting, whether you're getting a dog from a breeder, whether it's a puppy or an older dog, whatever it may be, having that patience is so important. And realizing that this dog is not going to come to you picture perfect, and they might not ever be. I think,
except for Clasp.
Except for Clasp and Cheesecake. But I think meeting a dog where they're at is so important. Like we're saying with people, it's like the same thing. Every dog is so different, and they might not ever be the dog that goes on vacation with you or goes to the farmer's market with you, or, you bring to a party. Like, every dog is so different, and trying to fit your dog into a box is only going to make them fail. Simon, my dog, for example, so many people look at Simon because he's such a great foster brother and he's so patient with the dogs. Simon doesn't like going out to breweries. Simon doesn't like he doesn't like his schedule being disrupted. Everyone thinks he's so easygoing. Has a lot of opinions, and I love that about him. I accept that about him. He's very independent. He doesn't like to cuddle. Does that make me sad? Of course, but I'm not going to force him to be something that he's not. So I think just patience is number one. Like we said, it took me 13 days to even touch Tiki for the first time. So I wouldn't have created that trust with him had I tried to mold him before he was ready. Knowing that there's going to be setbacks, knowing that, they're going to poop on your carpet, knowing that these hard times are going to come. You'll, take them to the emergency vet. It's going to be expensive. There are all of these things. But what I tell people about dog ownership and fostering is that it is so incredibly joyful. Like, I can't reiterate that enough. So many people say to me that what I'm doing is so selfless and amazing. And of course there's an element to it, but I'm like, it is so fun for me. It is so joyful. I get so much fulfillment from it. And that is what I want people to focus on, is just have fun, have a sense of humor. Like, your dog, poops in the middle of the floor. It's funny. Like, it doesn't have to be upsetting. It doesn't, nothing has to be so serious. Which is another thing I think your page is really great at, is highlighting the humor in dogs. And, they're not always perfectly behaved, but there's these like shining moments of joy that come from it. So yeah, that's what I would tell people.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear about Simon. My dog that passed at the end of 2023, Doug, who was like our CEO.
Yeah.
He was dog reactive from the moment I picked him up at the shelter.
Right.
And I didn't know that, but I was very lucky to have the resources to be able to handle that. And then I was very quickly, early on, grateful. Well, I mean, it's such that dog he was reactive towards other dogs, and that is an incredibly isolating and difficult experience.
Yep.
And so I'm very grateful to creators who are able to like articulate that experience. And I just felt so grateful really early on with Doug to be able to add to that. Like our walks are like Black Ops missions.
Yep.
I can't take him literally anywhere unless it's the desert and we're, miles from another dog. And yeah, just grateful to him in many ways. But one of them is I got to showcase an imperfect dog.
Right.
And
you loved him so much anyway.
Exactly. And people saw that. And, I got some comments that were like, I adopted a senior because of Doug. And it's like, oh, like that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So yeah, I would, if you ask me the same question, I'd echo what you said. And then, yeah, be prepared for, part of it's your dog. They're an individual. And I agree, to fit them into a box or what you think dog ownership is going to be like is a disservice to them and your relationship with them.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to thrive accepting them for who they are.
I also think, just like you said, being able to roll with the punches. And again, I think both you and I came from a very privileged place, but when I adopted Simon, I was a broke 25-year-old, and 4 weeks later, he had a grand mal seizure, and he's had extremely complex epilepsy ever since. And I figured it out, and I was able to figure it out. But I don't think I would have adopted him had I known that. At that point, I was like, I'm in love with this dog. I have to figure it out. I can't give up on him. But yeah, just like going into it knowing like you never know what's going to happen. It's impossible to predict. Simon was a perfectly healthy 3-month-old puppy. Like never in a million years did I think that he would almost die a month later from idiopathic epilepsy, but it happened. So yeah, just being prepared for anything and being prepared to love your dog regardless of what comes up.
I'm going to end with a question that I like to ask all my favorite people. But first, can you please tell us all the exciting things? You mentioned your book, but tell us more about it and maybe anything else you got.
Yeah. So my book is called Dogs, Boys, and Other Things I've Cried About. And it's about my 20s in New York City, my relationships and my friendships and all the many apartments that I lived in, all told through my stories of dogs. The best way that I can describe it is there's one chapter called Taking in a Broken Girl. And I had just gone through this horrible breakup. And I met these 2 girls on Craigslist who took me in, and I moved in with them. And they're now 2 of my best friends. I was bridesmaids in both of their weddings. And I compare it to my foster dog Poutine, who I took in, and I just took one look at her in the shelter and I was like, you're coming home with me, like immediately. And we were like 2 girlfriends, like healing together, watching TV. It was like very parallel experience. So that is kind of what the book is like a reflection of my life through my experiences with dogs. And that is coming out probably May or June of 2026. But it'll be available for pre-order before that, a couple of months before. And I'm just so excited for everyone to read it.
Congratulations. That's incredible. And I saw the title, but to hear you explain kind of the parallels, that's going to be very fun.
Yeah,
and
I'm excited.
Again, people will be able to find themselves and their dogs in it, I'm sure.
Yeah, and my main goal is I think there's so much media about dogs, that so many books and TV shows and movies that are just about dogs. But this is all full circle. It's kind of like our conversation that we had today. It's like my goal is to connect the humanity to the dogs and like show how my life is so mirrored of my experiences with dogs, because it's so it goes hand in hand. And I want to show that it's not just a book about dogs, it's a book about like life, and dogs are such a beautiful reflection of that.
So Isabel, why do we love dogs?
That is a heavy question. I mean, D, all of the above. We love them for literally every reason. I just think that dogs teach us so much, and every dog teaches me something different. Tiki taught us all to be brave. Cheesecake is teaching us all to be forgiving. And they're not even trying. And that's like the maddening part of it, is like they just are who they are, and they inspire us without even trying. And I really think that it could be such a lesson to humans if we choose to listen, just living in the moment, being exactly who we are, having no self-consciousness about our bodies or our personalities, just like being unapologetically ourselves. I think dogs are the greatest teachers that we have.
That's very well said. Isabel, thank you so much for joining us today and hanging out with Clasp and I.
Thank you so much for having us. And I can't wait to see where Clasp goes and who her forever family is going to be.
Yeah, I can't believe she's still in foster, but hey.
More nap for you.
Again, thank you so much. It's been incredible to watch everything that you're doing. And I know that sentiment is shared across, your entire community. So keep it up, and, we're watching.
Thank you for having me.
So as a reminder, this little puddle of a dog that has been asleep in my lap this entire episode, we're working on an hour and 10 minutes, is Adoptable here in LA from Wags and Walks. I tried to wake her up, but she is snoring. Her name is Clasp. I'll cover her adoption fee. So if you'd like Clasp, again, she's like 35-ish pounds. And she's a German Shepherd mix, I think. So I think she's going to get a little bit bigger. But she seems very chill. She knows how to sit. And she's been an absolute gift this last 90 minutes since I met her. Clasp available from Wags and Walks in LA. If you'd like to sponsor a future special guest, you can email podcast@weratedogs.com. They typically range between $150 and $500. And we can pair you up with a dog for a future episode. And we really appreciate that. This has been a very rewarding creative outlet and real world effective podcast so far. So appreciate you all. Shout out to the Farmer's Dog for sponsoring today's episode and for their commitment to celebrating Foster a Pet Month. We strongly recommend giving them a try. They have excellent 24/7 customer service and would be happy to answer any questions you have while transitioning your dog to a fresh food diet. You can start your dog's fresh food journey for 70% off through the link in our description until the end of the month.
Oh, that looks like a good dog. That's a good dog. Yeah, that looks like a good dog. A very good dog. Hey, that looks like a very